Hi there, welcome to my presentation slash training slash me just basically giving you a bit of a brain dump of all the things that I've done around my business in 2017. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the mistakes that I've made in the past, some of the mindset shifts I've experienced, and just some tips for how you can create a bit of a plan for your kind of online wellness business. So I really hope that you find this interesting. First of all, I just want to tell you a little about myself in case you're not familiar with who I am. So my name's Laura Agar Wilson. I started blogging back in 2010 when I set up just a nice little blog just for me I'd lost a lot of weight and I just wanted to have that motivation and inspiration, and I absolutely loved blogging, still do. And then I decided, after I was basically threatened with redundancy for my job, and I decided to train with IIN. At the time, my view was that I was going to become a health coach and actually work with youth and community groups. So I'm a trained youth worker, I've got an MA in youth and community work, and that was what I thought I was going to do with that. But as it happens, things really blossomed with the blog. I became completely self-employed in 2014, which was around the time that I was pregnant with my son. I live up in Durham in North East England with my husband James. My little boy's 2 now, and I currently work 3 to 4 days around my little boy, so he stays with my mum and goes to childcare. First of all, I wanted to start off, before I jump into a lot of the other stuff that I want to talk about. I thought it might be helpful, because obviously I don't know at what point in your business you are watching this, but I wanted to kind of simplify, and this is the way that I've simplified online business for me. It might not resonate with you, but this really, really helps me to kind of think about it in these terms. So for me, a simple bit to think about is in kind of 4 different stages. The first is be seen. So this is about being visible, about people actually knowing that you exist. So that can be SEO, that's search engine optimization, and content marketing. So that's about making sure that your blog posts get picked up on Google or Pinterest, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. That might be PR, about being featured in newspapers and magazines. It can be social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, things like Facebook ads. It might be, being on a podcast, creating your own podcast, etc. The kind of next stage is actually attracting people to become subscribers, followers, or fans. So that might be about getting them onto your list by using a free gift opt-in, which is something that I have on my site. But there's all sorts of different ways that you can attract those people, and obviously they need to be the right people, which we'll mention in a second. You also need to resonate. So that's about building the know, like, and trust factor. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically, for people to buy from you, they're going to need to know who you are, like you, and trust you. And that part of resonating might be around, emailing them with certain topics, stories, information about yourself, the way that you write your blog, etc. And also I've kind of added to that, it's about listening and responding. I think this is a really important bit, and this is one of the mistakes I made early on, was that I didn't do enough listening to what people needed and wanted, and enough responding in a way that resonated with them. So that's an interesting point on that one. And the final part of that, if you like, for me, is, you might think about it as selling, but actually it's about actually being helpful to your ideal clients. So it's about selling them, although, depending on how you feel about the word sell, programs and products that actually really help them. And I think when you're confident that what you've got is actually going to help them, it's not so much about selling them something, it's about saying, well, look, this is something that's going to help you. So I like the idea of being helpful. So for me, these things are actually on top of a foundation, and that foundation is around knowing what your vision and mission is for your business, understanding who your ideal client is, having some internal structures and systems. That might be your website, it might be how you manage clients, etc., and also your branding. So those and other things as well. But I think that's kind of what a foundation for a business is around, basically. So hopefully that just helps simplify it. And I think the more that you might go elsewhere and see other descriptors or different simplifications of it, but hopefully that might be something that resonates with you. So this is how I planned for 2017, basically. So I'm going to get a bit boasty, if that's all right, but I don't often do this. So I reviewed my 2016 successes, and it was the best year I've ever had in business. I ran my first retreat. I won Blogger of the Year at the British Health Journalism Awards. I made more income than I've ever made any other year in my business. I worked with more women than I've ever worked with before. I doubled my email list, which was fantastic. I actually, just on the 31st of December, it just hit the number that made it double, so I was really chuffed. I hit 100,000 views on my site, so I'll talk to you a little bit about the story of how I hit 100,000 views. And that happened, funnily enough, in December, which is traditionally one of my worst months. I wrote another book, which is called Coconut Oil, and that's due out in March 2017. I edited a full magazine for Speedo Sculpture, which is a project I was really proud of, like a freelance project. I had some really good press features. I was featured, a full feature in Natural Health magazine. I was featured in Gurgle magazine, which is great because it's all about mums, which is one of my target audiences. And I created the Balance Club, which is my core offer that I'm really passionate about offering to women. So it was a pretty good year, to say the least. And I'm not saying that to boast, but it's because it's actually a big thing for me to be able to share some of my successes. So those are the things that went well. However, I did review my mistakes, and to be honest, this is the first, I put 2016 and beyond, because this is quite a big deal for me to really look back at the mistakes that I've made throughout my whole journey. And we all make them. I'm not beating myself up about these mistakes, but only through identifying what they are can you kind of start moving forward. So a lot of it was actually to do with procrastinating on things that weren't actually building my list. So instead of actually building my list, I created new programs, because what I thought was happening was when my programs weren't selling, that there was something wrong with the program. It wasn't that. It was simply that I'd exhausted the people on my list and I wasn't building it fast enough. I also procrastinated on design and branding. I love design and branding. I did my degree in art and design, graphic design. I love design and branding. I could do it all day, but it's not going to help build my business necessarily. I worked with some brands that didn't actually create the value for my readers. So what I figured out was that I was doing product reviews, but really, I wouldn't read them I wouldn't be asked about reading them on someone else's blog. So that really stuck with me about how I can change how I do that. Some of my blog posts just didn't get very good views, just didn't get seen. And the commenting on my blog post was right down. And I think that's a general thing across blogging anyway. And I'll kind of quickly interject as well. For me, in the past, I've always seen myself as a blogger stroke, kind of doing this business stuff. And I think that's why I often have compared myself to other bloggers, and certainly in the amount of comments that they get. But there's this much of a big difference on how I run my business now, which I'll go into. I worked on projects that just simply weren't aligned with actually what I want my business to be about. So I'll describe that a little bit later on as well. And a lot of this was coupled with working from a place of lack. So I'm the main breadwinner in my family. And obviously we all need to keep a roof over our heads. So when a project came up that had a reasonable price tag on it, I would take it. Obviously, if it was horrendously unaligned, I've turned down working with Weight Watchers for a lot of money. I've turned down working with Slimming World for a lot of money. But if it was an okay job, I would take it on. And that was coming from a place of lack, and it wasn't actually the time that I was spending on those projects weren't actually helping me build my business up to the place where I wanted to be. And that was a really distinct thing that I realised at the end of 2016. So then, after that kind of review process, I actually started looking into my core desired feelings. So if you're not familiar with core desired feelings, I'd love you to check out Danielle Laporte's website and her book Desire Map. This isn't something I'm suggesting that everyone does, but if you can, it's amazing, because it's completely changed my life, to be honest, to be able to connect with those core desired feelings. But what I did was I looked at what those are, and then I looked at how I could actually experience those within my business. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel good, then what's the point? We're in this to feel good. So that was a really big shift, I think, for me, is to start seeing how I could experience these feelings within my business. And then what I did was created personal and business intentions based on those core desire feelings and what I'd learnt from 2016 and beyond. So again, I'll go into that in a bit more detail very shortly. So my core business goal for 2017 is to increase my revenue. I guess this is probably a core goal for most businesses. But then what I did was I set secondary goals that are going to help me achieve that core goal. So one of them is building my list. I'd like to double that again. I'd like to be more visible. Now, clear the decks for me kind of relates back to what I was talking about a couple of slides ago about actually getting all of the projects that aren't aligned with where I'm going done, completed, finished. So at the moment I'm still working on a recipe book for a publisher, and that's one of the things that I need to get done to clear the decks. So there's a few little things like that I need to get done. Another secondary goal is actually internal systems and customer service. So my vision for my business in terms of how I work with clients, certainly on a one-to-one basis, is about it being a real luxury experience and about me being able to offer clients gifts and, and to do that I want to work with less clients. But the internal systems and customer service are all around that, and also making sure that I've got a bookkeeper who can help me keep on top of my finances and financial management. So what I kind of did from that as well is looked at the successes from 2016 and kind of figured out how I can double down on them. So that's basically, if something's working, do it more. And that's really been kind of like a bit of a mantra for me going into 2017. And I also thought about, of course, how I could experience those core desired feelings through these. So, for example, things like being more visible. Like I really love being creative and design and things like that. So, being more visible, I can include one of my core desired feelings around being expressed through creativity, in designing new opt-ins, in designing a different website for something, in creating a really beautiful Instagram feed. So that's how I was kind of starting to incorporate some of those core desire feelings into those secondary goals. And then from that point, I wanted to map out those secondary goals by quarter. Now these might change, this is where they are at the moment, but the beauty of this whole system is that you're going to review every quarter. So right now, as I said, my quarter one core kind of focus is to clear the decks. I'm kind of thinking that in quarter two it's going to be about really, really focusing on list building. Quarter three I think is going to be more visible. There's kind of some crossover, so I do think that these are going to change because I think being visible leads to you building your list. So it's a bit of a funny one. And then quarter four at the moment I've got reviewing internal systems and planning for 2018. It's always been my kind of dream to be able to take most of December off. So obviously quarter four is kind of only 2 months. So I think being able to do a lot of planning and stuff in that final quarter kind of fits in well with the idea that I hopefully might be able to get to take some more extra time off in December. And as I said, I'll review all of these at the end of each quarter. So now I want to go on to, I've got ginger tea in typical health coach fashion on my desk. I'm just taking a sip. So the importance of knowing your metrics. Metrics are the indicators of your success. It's really key that you know what those are for you. They don't have to be these. They can be whatever you want. And this is about really tuning into what success means for you. This is something that's really helped me with compare myself to other business owners who are in a similar niche to myself, because I really want to focus in on what success is for me. So I track my income against different areas of work, and I have specific targets, which I'll talk a little bit about how I arrived at those targets shortly. I track my social media follows. I track the traffic that I get to my website and the number of unique users I have on my website. I've just started tracking Pinterest and the metrics around Pinterest, how many repins certain pins get, which ones are doing better than others, and so on. This is basically because Pinterest is my biggest referrer, and when I talked about that month in December when I had 100,000 views for the first time, it was all down to a couple of pins going viral on Pinterest. So that's something I'm really doubling down on. I also kind of track how many clients I've got, and I've got an aim to work with 6 health coaching clients and 6 business mentoring clients in 2017, so I'll be tracking that. And also how much I'm enjoying myself, because again, I think obviously it's important that you enjoy yourself for your own personal good, but for me, I think when you're enjoying yourself in your business, like your clients and customers know it, and it kind of comes out, it just like seeps out of you into everything that you do, and I just love kind of having that as an indicator of success. And of course, when you're setting your metrics, you want them to tap into those secondary focuses. So, if I'm tracking, for example, if one of my targets is to be more visible, it is one of my targets to be more visible. Social media follows is a metric that's going to help me track against that core focus, for an example. So when I talked about monetary targets, I think it's really important to run your numbers. So this is the way that I ran mine. So I mapped out the number of clients I wanted to work with, the number of members, the number of members who I wanted to attract into the Balance Club, the number of e-course customers that I'd like to have, the amount of freelance work I would love to have, the affiliate payments levels that I would like to get, and the live events that I wanted to hold. And I ran the numbers, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. So I ran the numbers based on something that felt comfortable with a bit of a stretch. and I was gobsmacked at how much it was, to be honest. And I'm really in that. I think if you can look at those numbers and feel excited, you're on the right track. Excited, but maybe slightly scared. And that's how I felt about doing mine. But I think you can do it in a couple of different ways. I think it's about looking at the different areas of your business. You might only be working with clients, and that's totally fine. You might be working with clients and doing some events or so on. But I think you can either start with the idea that you want to make a certain amount of money each year and work backwards and say, well, how many clients do I need to work with to hit that target? You can start with the numbers and then come out with the income target at the end. But that's really helped me just kind of have a really inspiring monetary goal. So that's quite exciting to think about it like that. So definitely run your numbers. Something that's been, and I'm recording this in January, and it's only been a couple of weeks that we've been into the new year, but a massive difference already that I've found is actually in terms of time management. Because at the end of the day, when you're working for yourself, it's not necessarily very easy to manage your time. But what I've found is really helpful is blocking out time in your calendar. So, sorry, taking another drink. So this might be, I use Google Calendar and I kind of block out the time that I'm going to work on a certain task. It's still a work in progress because I'm still kind of figuring out, obviously, tasks tend to take longer than what you think they're going to, but I'm kind of getting a handle on that. But seeing everything blocked out is being so helpful for me. It just means I'm not kind of constantly referring to a to-do list. I can look at the week and know exactly what I'm going to be working on. And it really helps me have a single task focus, which for me means I get so much more done and I feel so much more satisfied at the end of the day. Another thing that I've started working on is actually batching work. So what works for me is to try and have all of my meetings or clients on a single day. So usually for me it's a Tuesday if I can wangle it that way, which means that I'm in that kind of outward facing, I'm in health coach Laura mode. But then on other days it might mean batching blog posts. So the other day I spent a whole morning and I wrote 3 blog posts off the trot, and I was just in the zone. And I think what that does is it really helps you get into a flow and makes the most of time. I think every time that you switch tasks, you lose about 20% of your productivity. So single task focus and batching your work is a really effective time management strategy. Some of the mindset changes, I think this is a really interesting thing, and I didn't really think a lot about these until I started writing this, but actually there's been quite a lot of mindset changes that have happened to me, which I feel really positive about, and I think this is what's going to make a big difference going into 2017 for me and my business. So what happened was, like I said, I was kind of very much acting from this place of lack and worrying that there wasn't enough to go around. And what I've kind of done is really worked on being in an abundance mindset, and really reminding myself that, I've never had a month where I've fallen short income-wise. I've had months where I've just made enough and I'm ready to let that go. I'm ready to make more than enough. I'm ready to have the abundance coming into the business. That I know that I can get that, and that is a definite mindset shift. I've also really embraced being me. So and this kind of is connected with the second point, which is focusing on your own lane and not comparing yourself to others. But for a long time, I have had a bit of a, I'm not a very typical health coach, if there is such a thing. But really embracing who I am and how I'm different to other people. And one of the ways that I often talk to this with business coaching clients as, if you think about all of the different brands of green tea there is, if you go to the shops and you look at the tea aisle, there's loads of different brands of green tea, even more different kinds of herbal tea. And at the end of the day, it's all green tea, but it's in a different package, it's got a slightly different feel to it or whatever. And that's kind of a bit of a way to think about online business. And if you sometimes feel perhaps threatened, and I'm going to totally say that, especially this January, I felt triggered and horrible, icky feelings of being threatened by other people. You just need to remember, there's plenty of different brands of green tea. You can be plenty of different brands of health coach doing similar things to you, talking about the same things as you. Some people are going to just jive with you and be your people, and some people are going to be other people's people, and that's totally fine because there's more than enough to go around. But I think that starts with really embracing being you, or really embracing being me. And I had a lovely photo shoot done at the end of 2016, and that was really the cherry on top, because I'd never really felt comfortable in photo shoots that I've done before, but I felt really comfortable in this one. I did a lot of work into making sure it was successful and that I felt the way that I wanted to feel and I looked the way that I wanted to look. So that was just wonderful, and it was a definite mindset shift. And like I say, really just focusing on my own lane and trying not to get too, too kind of like, oh my God, look at that awesome thing that she's doing. I'm so crap in my business. And I'm sure we all get that. But just focusing on my own lane, focusing on what success means to me, remembering that there's like 7 billion people on this planet. There is more than enough, customers, clients, people who need your help to go around. And I just needed to remind myself of that and get myself into that mindset. A really big shift for me has come around kind of realising I'm not just a blogger anymore. So I kind of mentioned that at the start. So my kind of journey started out as very much as a blogger, and I'm still thought of as a blogger. However, for me, I needed to change my mindset away from, I'm not a blogger anymore. I'm actually a businesswoman, and I'm the CEO of my business. And I think I was certainly comparing myself to other bloggers in terms of like how many, followers they had on Instagram and how many comments they were getting and stuff. But then when you think about someone who's running the blog just as a blog, and that's not just to be like just as a blog, but when someone's just kind of focusing in on that kind of working with brands, etc., they've got so much more time. They're not working on crafting, beautiful emails to their list. They're not particularly working on creating new programs, running retreats and live events. So there's a whole different kind of like level of work that comes with running your own business. I needed to remind myself of that, and also to tune in the fact that this is what I want to be doing. I want to be running a business that is going to be successful for years to come, not just be a blogger. And I've said that, just be a blogger, but I don't mean that to be disrespectful to bloggers, but you guys know what I mean. It's kind of I think it's a mindset shift, rather than a big difference in how I particularly work. And the final thing was really get unapologetic about what I want. And there's always been a bit, certainly when it comes to money, I think, that it's natural. I don't think it's natural. I think some people feel it kind of feels greedy or icky or whatever to talk about money or to want money. But look, at the end of the day, I know the kind of life that I want for me and my family. And ultimately, money is a driver as part of that. And I'm unapologetic about that now. And I think being unapologetic about it is a big mindset shift. It's about saying, this is what I want my business to be like. I want, 1,000 members in my club at least. I want to be, have loads of followers on Instagram. I'm, and owning that and not being afraid of it and not being afraid to admit it. So that was quite a big shift. And then I wanted to quickly chat about some of the specific changes that I've made to the way that I run my business in 2017 as compared to years previous. So the first thing that I've done is that I've actually reduced how often I blog. Now, this isn't just tapping into what I was talking about there, about switching from being a blogger to a businesswoman, or that mindset shift. But actually, it was really just about kind of getting with the program. People aren't... I started blogging back in 2010. People aren't, accessing content online in the same way. So I know, for example, just even looking at how I access content, I don't tend to read blogs anymore. I follow people on Instagram. I find people on Facebook, follow people on Facebook. I go on Pinterest because I'm a Pinterest queen. I love Pinterest. And I'll find blog posts that I really enjoy reading through Pinterest. But what it made me realise is that in terms of my business, I just wasn't getting the return on investment in terms of the time that I was spending putting into blog posts. So I have reduced how often I blog. I used to blog 2 to 3 times a week. I'm now going down to 1 to 2 times. I'm not sticking to that like glue. I'm going to give myself some freedom around that. But that's kind of how often I'm blogging. In kind of response to that, I've also started posting on Instagram more frequently and doing more Facebook live chats and things, and just generally kind of getting a bit more visible on those 2 platforms. I've doubled down on Pinterest. So like I said, I had some fantastic results with Pinterest, and it's been incredible, the shift that happened when those posts went viral. I think it's hard to... I'm trying to I have figured out how to recreate that success. The test is going to be seeing how it goes. So maybe I'll have to report back on that one. But I'm really doubling down on Pinterest. So those posts that I do, I'm going to make sure that they're optimised for Pinterest, and that it's all about making sure that they perform well on Pinterest. And that they're obviously really, really helpful and interesting for my audience to read. Kind of connected to that as well, I've really niched in on the topics that I post about. So I used to post about, God, when I started blogging, and even like the couple of years, I used to post about all sorts of stuff. A lot of my own personal life stuff. which I still want to cover. I definitely want to talk about like my personal journey and experiences, but you know, I just a post once a week about this is what I've been getting up to this week, which was lovely, and I think people really enjoyed those posts. However, you've now got Instagram, and I found I was just repeating what I had on what the images that I had on Instagram, and so much of it is on all these other platforms now. I didn't really see the point in doing it, and plus I had to be mindful of how I was managing my time. So what I've done is I've really niched in the topics that I post about. So I'm really focusing on self-care, self-love, like mindset, balance, the kind of parts of health and well-being that are not food and exercise in a way. Although I am still doing my healthy recipes at the moment, because I think that's quite important for me, because I really enjoy doing that as well. But I'm definitely switching the focus up a little bit onto those kind of niched in areas. I've also really changed how I intend to work with brands. So like I said, this is kind of where, you know, business meets blogging kind of thing for me. I don't want to work with brands in a way that's just not meaningful for my audience anymore. I've learned so much about, when I first started working with brands, I didn't have a clue what the hell I was doing. Now I want to make sure that it's a much more appropriate relationship, and that it really does benefit my readers. It's not just about saying, hey, here's this product, blah, blah, blah. I want them actually, the post to be a lot more engaged and a lot more interesting, and to work with them in a way that's actually going to be a lot more interesting for me, and that's going to feel a bit more aligned. So I'll be interested to see how that works. I don't think it's going to be a perfect process. I think I'm going to probably make mistakes along the way, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I've also decided not to write any more books, which was a really big, scary decision. I've actually already turned down 2 books. So if you're not familiar with the books that I've already written, I wrote, I was one of the authors of Grains as Mains, which is a really big recipe book all about grains, and I've just, the coconut oil book is going to be out in March. And I enjoyed it, you know, writing those books, but in terms of income, they're not like crazily amount of good income. You don't get royalties because I'm contracted by the publisher to write those titles, and that's it. And it's not, you know, writing books is not aligned with where I want to take my business, and it's a big scary decision to turn down a lot of money. But like I said, I have to kind of go where I need to go and make that commitment to myself. Just take another sip of tea. And yeah, it's been a bit of a scary decision. And I mean, I've said that I don't want to write any more books. It's not a Laura book. My dream is to write a wholeheartedly healthy book. That's something, I don't think I'm going to get around to that this year. I think next year it might be on the agenda, where I might want to start approaching publishers and trying to get a deal for that kind of book. I'm just going to put that out there. Anyone who's listening who's a publisher. But yeah, so that's the only kind of book I really want to write. Like I say, I've got one that I've already contracted to do, which is one of my Clear the Decks tasks. And again, you know, really connected with all of that stuff is just the whole idea that if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So if I kind of see an opportunity and it's like, oh yeah, it looks good, but it's not a yes. It needs to be like, oh yes, this is a brilliant opportunity, this is so aligned with me, I'm going to enjoy doing this, it's going to be fantastic. Then if it's not that kind of reaction, it needs to be a hell no. And again, that's really, really scary for me to make that commitment to myself. And again, I'm not saying that I'm going to be perfect, but it's heading in that general direction, which is quite exciting. So I wanted to kind of just sum up with some. I've shared a lot about the changes that I've made, and this is obviously my business. Your business is going to be different, but oh, sorry, I'm choking. But I wanted to really give you some tips for your 2017, and just a really quick kind of some takeaways that you can use. So the first is just to review what worked and what didn't work last year, and that can just be simple as just writing a couple of lists down. I think setting a main goal for the entire year, the thing that you really focused on, and then having some quarterly focuses which are going to actually help get you to that stage. And I think going back to looking at I think it was the first slide where I just did that really simple breakdown of what a business might look like, to see if you've got some of those things covered and where you might be missing, where you might need to up your game on some of those things. Know what your metrics are, make sure that your metrics are feeding into those quarterly focuses, but make sure that you've got metrics that are about your version of success as well. You know, are you enjoying yourself? Are you feeling fulfilled doing this? And so on. Now, this is an interesting one that I came across in one of the planning guides that I was using, which is only work on building one bridge at a time. And I'm a real bugger for this. But it's about, if you're going to develop a new program, make that your one bridge and build that bridge. Don't try and build another bridge. Don't try and be working on, hitting like 5,000 subscribers on your email list at the same time. Just kind of put your focus onto one thing. Get one thing done, signed off, move the needle on your business forward in one area and then move on to building another bridge. And again, I think that's quite a good mindset to have. Block out time in your calendar. If that resonates with you in terms of a time management technique, I think that's a really helpful one. Know what your ticking over tasks are. I haven't really mentioned that in any of the other slides, but for me, it was really important to know that I've got certain tasks that have to be done just to keep the business running. So for me, that's things like, obviously, emails need to be answered. I've got to manage. I've got 3 Facebook groups that I manage. I've got my social media feeds that need to be managed all of the time. I need to manage my finances and know what your ticking over tasks are and assign time for those properly. At the start of each month, I'll look at the calendar and actually block out the time that I'm going to spend on those tasks. Like a Monday morning for me is what I call my weekly tasks. So that's like, I've got like a follow-up folder in my email account, so I check all of those. I check any unpaid invoices and, all of that kind of stuff. Just knowing what those ticking over tasks is really key. And think about what mindset changes you might need to make. I mean, you might have maybe reading some of mine might have made you think about what yours might be, and just think about how you can flip some of those on its head and take some risks and be brave. If you're into kind of like the woo-woo stuff, the universe is going to meet you halfway. This is what I keep telling myself, and I know that it's true because it's happened for me before. So, make those changes. And I'd also say work with a coach or mentor. So I started working with a coach back in 2015. It was the first time I properly worked with a coach, and it really did change the way that I run my business. And what happens is, what's always happened for me is I've learned on the go. I know how to create a website. I know how to create a video myself. I know how to photograph food. I know how to create an email sequence. I know how to set up an email account. There's loads of things I know how to do because I've taught myself. But then when I started working with a coach, it was like I started taking leaps rather than steps. So that's what's made the difference. I started working with a coach in October, and she's really, really helped me again move the needle on the business and make sure that I'm actually moving forward towards something and actually having that accountability there. So one of the things that I'm working with her on this next few weeks is I'm going to do 4 Facebook Live chats. A coach or mentor can work with you in lots of different ways, depending on where you are and what you need. But I do think it's really important. And for me, it's also about, I believe in the coaching model, and it's about putting my money where my mouth is, to be honest, in that respect. So yeah, I hope that has been interesting. I've got a bit of a cold, so apologies if I'm a bit like, and obviously I've been drinking ginger tea as well. But if you'd like to connect with me any further, you can find me on wholeheartedlyhealthy.com. You can find out about my business coaching if that's something that might be interesting to you. That's wholeheartedlyhealthy.com/biz-coaching. On social media, I'm at Laura Agar Wilson. And you can email me, of course, on laura@wholeheartedlyhealthy.com. So I'd really love to get your feedback on this. I feel like I've just totally spilt like everything that I've thought about and considered for my business. And it feels good to be able to share that with you. And it's been really helpful for me, actually, just being able to talk that through at this stage. So again, I really love your feedback. I'd really love to know if that's been helpful. I hope it hasn't overwhelmed you, depending on where you are in your business. Just take things a step at a time, and you'll get there. It's taken me a few years, but it's been damn well worth the journey. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye.